Healing Your Families, where we address 6 areas of health for families: emotional, financial, mental, physical, social, and spiritual. And I'm very excited to have a financial expert with me today. This is Amber Peterson, a money mindset coach. Amber, welcome.
Thank you so much, Emma Lou. I'm so excited to be here.
Now, I've been following you on social media. You have a Facebook group that I'd like to be part of, and you offer free trainings. And I know you work with families, and my experience has been money is a hot issue with families, especially when it comes to the holidays, because we may have grown up with certain traditions. We want it to be just so.
Yes.
So let's talk about these financial expectations for the holidays. What's your recommendation for families?
Yes. Thank you so much for asking that, Emma Lou, because I think that's something that we don't always consider when it comes to budgeting around the holidays and how we use our money to see if it's aligning with how we want our holiday to look. We can get bogged down, unfortunately, by lots of expectations of how we think the holiday should go. And a lot of that has to do with, what traditions do we have and what parties are we supposed to be a part of, or what events are around that we feel like we need to have there to make the holiday special. Unfortunately, that can not only lead to stress on ourselves, stress on our budgets, but then we may not end up having the holiday that we truly want. And so, for example, we might have an expectation that we need to send out Christmas cards if we're talking specifically about Christmas, and that's what, our audience may be celebrating. You might say, well, I want to send out Christmas cards because that's really important, but is that tradition helping you create the holiday that you want and helping you spend your money the way you want? So it's a holiday that not only you can enjoy, but then really brings you closer to the reason why you're celebrating in the first place.
I totally agree with that. As you said that, it made me think of the family member who maybe has a home improvement project, and they would probably appreciate a few hours of your time helping them more than a card.
Yes. Yes. And sometimes we just think, nope, this is what we have to do to make the holiday great. We got to send out Christmas cards. And we might want to take a step back and say, do we really? Is that something that's contributing to a better holiday for me and those I'm trying to help?
And sometimes I think it's easy to get caught up in a competition. Am I sending out more cards than anyone else in my circle?
Yeah, that might be. Or if we feel like we need to do certain things just because other people, either in our family or neighbors or friends, are doing the same thing. And we may even notice, and I think this is with the advent of social media, if someone posts something and you think, oh, that looks really fun, I should do that too. But we may not have the same experience, or we might have an expectation of having the same experience and it may not go as planned. So, two, we just want to really consider, especially around this time of year that tends to get really busy, what things are most important and what is really contributing to the holiday that we want.
I love that focus. Focus on what is going to be the most meaningful, what is going to, well, and this is a time for families to bond, and it could, this financial stress could so easily drive them apart. So why not focus on those things that is a bonding experience for your family? I know of a lot of families that rather than having the big holiday meal at home, they volunteer at a homeless shelter or a soup kitchen, and they're there together, but they're serving meals to those who wouldn't have anything to eat otherwise. And they find that much more meaningful.
Yes, I think you bring up an excellent point, Emma Lou, is that the holidays are really to build connections and relationships, and there's reason behind usually the holidays that we celebrate. Now, for a lot of the Christian world, they celebrate Christ at Christmas. But unfortunately, once again, with our traditions around those holidays, we may not even feel that connection with family members and loved ones, or that connection to why we're celebrating, because we get so bogged down in tradition. And I've been asking myself about this, because actually I'm doing a class about this soon. Is I said, okay, well, let me think about my past experiences with holidays, especially Christmas. I said, what has it been like for me? And I thought, you know what? If I'm honest with myself, the past few have been a little stressful. They felt like I've had more things to do than time to do it. And even though, the holiday went fine, there was quite the connection that I was looking for. It was like checking off, a whole bunch of things on my list. And it was like, okay, I got through my list. That's so good. But really, that didn't help me focus on why I'm celebrating or to build those connections. And so I think that's why around this time of year, when we have a tradition and we have an expectation of how that tradition should go. Let me give an example, actually. So if we have a tradition as a family to go look at Christmas lights, and we remember, oh, I remember when we went when the kids were young. I remember when I went when I was young, and we had such a wonderful experience. We should do that again. And we have the expectation that that is the experience we're going to have now. Well, it may be a similar experience. It may not, but we tend to say, well, if we do more of those things and we pack our schedule and our calendar full, then what ends up happening is we probably don't get the same experience that we were hoping for or expecting to have. And unfortunately, when it doesn't meet our expectations, so if we go out and look at Christmas lights, and maybe our kids are complaining, or they're like, oh, I don't really want to go. This isn't very fun, and you don't have the same experience. Then what ends up happening is that you are disappointed with the experience, and it wasn't what you wanted it to be in the first place.
You know, you it's so true. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves when the expectations are high and we're jumping through all these hoops to meet them. And I think it's one thing to decide for yourself, but when we're trying to make decisions for the whole family, we
Mm-hmm.
jump into that. How different it would be if we sat down as a family and decided, okay, what are the most important things for you to do in this holiday season? And
Yes.
everyone could contribute. So we're making sure that everyone gets to do at least one thing that's important to them, rather than, and that this would be a much better time to find out that our children have absolutely no desire to go look at lights,
Yes.
rather than after we've just spent 2 or 3 hours doing that.
Exactly. And I think that's a really good point that you bring up. Is I think it's important to then consider everybody that's going to be involved in these activities to see if that's something you all truly want to do. And now, granted, there's going to be some compromise where if maybe not everybody wants to go look at lights, but if there's some give and take there and you find out, oh, we'd like to maybe go do this activity, okay, then you can do that, and then find some other things that those other family members would like to do to really make it a holiday that everyone can enjoy. And I think too, something we were mentioning earlier, and I'll get into that in a minute, is more about how the money aspect of that works. But I know that you were going to ask a question, Emily.
Well, I was just making the comment that could be that family member that says, I'll go look at lights if we can get hot chocolate afterwards.
Right. Yeah. Great compromise.
But I was just thinking of that too. It's even if we had the most wonderful Christmas and every fantasy came true, but then the bills start coming in January. If we're not, it's not only our time we need to allocate, it's also our funds. And I think, I know, raising our family, we quite often overspent, and we're paying bills in January.
Yeah. So that's another thing that's super interesting about the holidays is that we get this anticipation. Once again, we remember all those good memories, all those fun traditions, all the things that just made that time of year so special. I think of just to something small is we celebrate Thanksgiving and we don't normally have pie the rest of the year. So that's something that we have at our Thanksgiving meal that's unique. And so it's like, oh, I'm anticipating this because it's just something we don't do all the other times of the year. So it's something special to look forward to. And I think that's what builds the excitement around a holiday is all those, memories and things. And so it makes us want to splurge, I guess you can say, and indulge to say, oh, this is going to make it so much more fun. But just like you said, Emily, you come about mid to end of January, those credit card bills start coming in from the holiday, and then it's not so fun.
And, and, so,
It's pretty miserable.
and sometimes you're not even keeping track of how much
Yes.
you're spending. If you started out with, this is how much money we can allocate for this special holiday, and then you're monitoring that, and then you're realizing, okay, we only have this much left, what's most important. But we don't
Yes.
do that. As it comes up, oh, we've got to have this, oh, we've got to
Yeah.
have that decoration, we've got to, and then the stress doesn't end with the holiday, it goes
Exactly.
on. And this causes the kind of contention in families that leads to angry, ugly arguments,
Yes.
and eventually divorce. Money is a big factor in divorce.
It is, because money plays an aspect into all the things we do as a family. It provides shelter. It provides us means of, sustaining our family, of food, of clothing, of activities, of experiences. So money really is a factor in all the things we do as a family. And when that commodity, or we feel that commodity is not working in our favor and we feel like it's scarce, and that bill comes, it does feel overwhelming. And especially if we don't know how to really allocate our money to where we feel it's going to align with our values and goals, then it does become a huge stressor for families. And especially when it comes to after the holidays, you've had your fun, you've had those amazing experiences, hopefully, that they've all turned out well, and it's been this great experience. But how many of us 30 days later want to pay for that fun that we had in the past? It is not fun to pay for that, right? We look ahead to say, oh, what other things can we do and create in our lives? But now we're restricted to do those other things because now we need to pay for the fun we already had. And that is another factor that can make it so stressful is you can't anticipate, you can't enjoy the, things that you have now or future things because you're needing to pay off the things you've already had fun with.
And what would you recommend? Quite often what happens is the one who just wants to spend freely. This only happens once a year, always marries the one that says, no, we need to carefully monitor our expenses.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, I would say number one is communication about your goals as a family and as a couple. Because if you're not on the same page with goals, that makes those situations extremely difficult. And if you're not communicating properly to be like, this is something I feel could be super important for our holiday, is that something we can work into our budget to make sure that we can have that and still have the budget so we don't have the money regret maybe later on, January, February, March timeframe. And so I would say communication is key and knowing your goals. And I would say too, especially with this conversation in particular, what are your expectations for the holiday? Are we piling things in just because we think that's going to make our holiday special? Are we planning more events and parties and things because we're like, oh, that sounds fun, but it's putting a strain on your relationship and on your budget? Is that really going to bring you the goal or the end result that you're really looking for? And let's even say you do have a great party or experience. Is it worth the strain and stress of now being in debt or not having a greater relationship with your spouse because now you're stressed out about money? And so what this entails though, and I think this is the hardest part about it, is being able to say no to some of those expectations and those experiences, because we have it in our minds quite often that that's what makes the holiday amazing. is doing these special things and to have these special dinners and to have all of this excitement and, with the different events and parties. However, that may not make the holiday really what it is. It might be just adding to the stress of it. So that's something you'd want to really consider too as a couple is what are those things that you're putting on your calendar that are really going to help have the holiday that you want and keep the budget where you want it so that it's not a stressor later.
So I see you really can come up with a way to satisfy the one who wants the budget, doesn't want to go into debt, and the one who wants to have it be grand and glorious. And to me, the icing on the cake is something you just said about maybe, we all have different love languages, but to me, having my husband listen and care about what I wanted would be far more valuable than having him give me a lavish gift. So just that we care enough about each other, we want to communicate, we want to make each other happy, not only now in this holiday season, but all year round. So these
Absolutely.
conversations would start well before the holiday season, right?
Yes. I mean, they should be ongoing because, a holiday isn't just once a year. There's holidays throughout the year. There's celebrations throughout the year. There's different experiences that you create as a family. And so, yeah,
Birthdays.
yeah, birthdays, for example, and those happen, all the time. And so, having that open communication with your spouse is key because then you're on the same page. And then, going into a holiday, it's not a shock or surprise to say, wait, you don't want to spend this kind of money? Or the other person may be like, oh, wait, what's wrong with having this amazing holiday and spending a little bit more? And so I think knowing those and creating that communication with your spouse is so key because then it really makes the holiday even better. And I think you brought up something that's really important to factor into this, Emmylou, is that many times the gift is in expressing love, sharing, spending time together, being able to do some things together to create memories and experiences. A lot of times it may not be the gift that is really going to show someone you care about them. And I think sometimes that's what we can get caught up in, especially like a holiday like Christmas, where it's, well, we need to give gifts to show others that we care about them, or that we need to give a certain amount of money or a certain amount of gifts to make sure that that's a good holiday. And a lot of times we get into March timeframe. How often do our kids even remember what they got for Christmas?
Or can find it.
Or you can find it, right? Or if it's just still working. And so sometimes I think that we worry so much about giving gifts and spending money, but that may not be the best way to show others that we care about them, nor is it maybe as meaningful to them to get that.
And to be honest, when I look back at my childhood, I know I got toys at Christmas. I know I got lots of nice presents at Christmas. I don't remember them specifically, but I do remember um, baking the delicacies with my mother and decorating the house. And I remember that time I spent with my family and the things we
Yes.
did together. Now, and what keeps popping up in my mind is that little short story O. Henry wrote, The Gift of the Magi. Young
Mm-hmm.
couple, they were just so poor. She had long, beautiful hair. He had a priceless watch been handed down in his family. That's the only valuable things they had. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And she sold her hair to buy him a chain for his watch. He pawned his watch to buy her a comb for her hair. So
Yes.
there they
Yes.
are. They share their gifts and they realize what they have is their love and commitment to each other is worth far more than anything else.
Yeah. And that brings up, something else I just thought about, Emmylou, is that sometimes we overlook those things that are actually most meaningful to us. And I think it can be scary sometimes to let go of expectations, to let go maybe of the status quo or the norm, or even traditions we've had. So, for example, if we said, well, instead of giving gifts, why don't we go do service, or why don't we just spend the day together? I know that can seem scary to a lot of families, saying, well, that's different from the norm. That's different from a lot of people do. But we may find in maybe creating those new traditions that don't have as much maybe materialism, that we might find even more joy in that. But the change is going to be a bit uncomfortable to see if that's going to work for you and your family.
But it's the conversations, it's the
Yeah.
communication. That would be, you know how you feel when you have that heart to heart talk with a family member and you feel like you've reached a common ground. You've been heard and validated and you understand them better. That's priceless.
It is. It especially when it comes to something like money and wanting to make connections and celebrate holidays together. Nobody goes into a holiday saying, hey, I want to stress out. I want to be
I
miserable
want
with
to
my
get as
money.
I want to get as deep and dead as I possibly. No, of
Right.
course we don't.
Of course not. But yet we tend to fall into that pattern, hoping to have our expectations met of our holiday. We spend the extra money on lavish meals. We spend the extra money on lots of gifts. We give to many, many, many people, and a lot of times more people get added to the list every single year, hoping that we will experience more joy, or that we might experience more happiness, or we might love our holiday more. And I think we just need to take a step back and just say, is that really creating what you want this holiday? Or is it adding more stress to your holiday? Is it just another checklist item that you're trying to complete to say, oh, this, I finished this, that was part of what a holiday should look like, and is it really bringing you the joy you're looking for?
And I'm earning recognition. I just gave more gifts than anyone else.
Yeah. And that can be exhausting to try to keep up with all of that all the time. And I do think, especially when it comes to gift giving, there is some inherent joy of giving to others. And so I think that's why so many love to do it. And so I'm not saying it's wrong or it's bad or that you shouldn't, but I'm just saying, is it gone to excess where you want to give to so many that it's overwhelming to you and it's stressful to you and it's not creating that joy of giving, but it's creating the stress of, I've got to make sure everybody on the list is covered.
And what I have discovered is you can only have so much stuff.
It's true.
We finally, my husband and I have been married for 50 years, and we finally told our children, we don't need any more stuff.
Yeah.
We have enough stuff. If you want to give us a gift, make it your time or something consumable. And I think
Yeah.
there are a lot of older people who feel the same way. We don't need more things. You can only keep so many knickknacks.
Yeah.
But come and visit me. Let's spend some time talking. Let's do something together.
Yes. And
Let's make some memories. They last
exactly.
forever.
Well, and you were just mentioning about making cookies and delicacies and those things with your family. That's what stuck with you. That's, even though those, the experiences may not have been perfect all the time, right? Because we're humans and we're in families and we're figuring it out. But that's what you remember. You remember those times you spent together. And that is an invaluable gift. Because if we really think about it, money we can always make more of. What we can't make more of is time.
Mhm.
And so we have that precious 24 hours every single day. And you want to use them in a way that enhances the experiences that you're having instead of taking away from.
Yes, money is the most precious gift you can give to your family because, as you pointed out, it's limited, only 24 hours in a day, and you're the only one who can give it.
Yeah, you're
So
the only
maybe
one that can give that time.
focus on the time. And then I like what you said about the conversations, deciding well before the holiday season, what do I want? What is most important to me? And hopefully it's the people in your lives.
Yeah.
and strengthening those relationships. And what activities will do that? And having that, with your spouse, your significant other, and determining how much of our money are we going to allocate for this? What's the budget?
Yes.
And making that agreement, we're both going to stick to it because we want to enjoy the months after the holidays as much as we
Yes.
enjoy the holidays.
We do. We don't want to create this cycle where we indulge in a holiday and then end up spending the next 3 months paying for it, or even longer than that in some cases. We want to not only enjoy the holiday, make it a meaningful one, but then also enjoy the time after that. You don't want to create a cycle where every holiday you're just, splurging and then paying for it and then splurging and paying for it. Let's enjoy both the holiday and the time after. So I think that's really, really important. And, even for those that haven't had maybe great communication even before a holiday, it's never too late to begin. You can always say, okay, we're in the middle of, the season. Okay, well, this is what I'm kind of thinking for the holiday. What are your thoughts? How can we come together? How much do we want to spend? And then what is something we're both willing to say, maybe let's let that go, or no to say, maybe this isn't, we've done this, for years and years, but maybe this really isn't contributing to what we want to create. Let's say no this year to that. Maybe it's saying no to Christmas cards. Maybe it's saying no to an extra party. It really deciding together. And I think you might find that being able to, decide together and then let some of that go can contribute to an even better holiday.
And remember that saying no to one thing means you're saying yes to something else.
Yeah.
And it could be something that's more meaningful to you.
Yeah.
Now, I know you share a lot of valuable information for parents in your Facebook group and your social media posts. So, how can people contact you? What's the best way for them
Yeah,
to
there's
meet up
several
with you?
areas, that they can reach out to. So a lot of it's very simple. It's called Mamas and Money is my Facebook group. And then I have Mamas and Money podcast and Mamas and Money show at winwinwomen.tv. And so tried to keep it very simple across the board to find me. All of these are complimentary resources where you can come on and get information about, expectations for the holidays, or how to save on groceries, or how to have money conversations with your spouse, all of those things that are going to play a role with your money and help you gain more confidence there. So I would love to have you connect with me in any of those different areas, and also reach out, and I can answer questions, on our TV shows here, just watching Emmylou. We love to talk to you afterwards and say, what questions can we answer? Or if you're in the Facebook group, I'd be happy to answer those questions too. So that's the best way you can find me.
And your show is on Fridays.
Fridays at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time.
And they can watch you there. They can find your Facebook group. You've had some interesting challenges or week-long trainings.
Yeah, we did one not too long ago on budgeting, being able to tell your money where to go. My upcoming one is going to be about happy holiday spending, very similar to what we've been talking about here, not only managing our expectations around the holiday, but then really taking that action to say, okay, what am I willing to keep? That is really important to me, and what am I willing to not keep so I can have the holiday I'm looking for? And also, managing our expectations about others should be on our holiday as well, which is another huge component we probably don't have time here for today, because not only do we have our own expectations, but we might expect others to act or be a certain way on the holiday, and that can also contribute to not making the holiday everything we want.
This is where we need to remember the only person we can control is ourselves. This is where we want to have those family discussions of sharing and listening to understand.
Yes.
And we can share. It would mean a great deal to me if you would do this, if you asking your husband to dress up as Santa Claus, but accepting that they need to make choices for themselves.
Exactly. And sometimes it's hard to communicate because we don't know how the other person's going to react. But I think you're absolutely right, Emily. The more we can be expressive, like exactly say what we want. Say, hey, I would love it if you could tell me, how you're feeling. I would love to know what your expectations of the holiday are. This is what I would love to see happen. And having that open dialogue, then it takes the guesswork out of it, for your spouse, for your family, and just saying, this is kind of what I want it to look like. They can say, this is what I want it to look like. And then you can come to, more happy mediums and conclusions of saying, okay, what can we do to help this be a more successful time for everybody? And I think that communication's key.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Amber, thank you so much for joining me. I know that you have so much useful information for parents in this most treacherous area of family health. We quite often overlook it. We're very much aware of our physical health, our emotional health, mental, and everything else. But this financial aspect, if we're not able to come be on the same page in this area, it leads to discord that can't be mended.
Absolutely. And,
So,
reach out for that help. I know it's an
yes.
uncomfortable conversation a lot of times, but having that, once again, communication, that open conversation, then can lead to a better and brighter future, especially with your finances.
And you can provide that guidance in how to have that all important and yet difficult, challenging conversation. I love that you can provide families with that service.
Well, thank you so much, Emmylou. And I'm so grateful to be here and for the work that you're doing. Raising a family nowadays is challenging. There's so many things that, parents and caregivers are needing help with. And I'm so grateful that you get to support them in that way as well.
Yes, well, you're absolutely right. I think parents today are facing challenges no previous generation had to deal with greater intensity. So, Amber, thank you. And for my viewers, join me again next week at the same time. Until then, love yourself and love your families. Let's make the world a better place by strengthening families. This is Emmylou Penrod with HealingYourFamilies.com.